Okay, so a week ago, Adobe released a new update to AEP introducing device lookups in Datastreams. Now, I use a lot of words that may or may not mean anything to you, but this is actually a pretty big deal because in CJA, we previously had to rely on getting browser information and device information, operating system, and stuff like that from Adobe Analytics, right? Adobe Analytics would pipe it in. We'd use like the data from Adobe Analytics, pipe it into CJA, and use that device information to identify like the tech that people are using. And if you weren't doing that, like if you're just paying for CJA and like that's all you have is the CJA license, which is what, you know, I think long term might end up happening with a lot of these accounts, what you're kind of stuck with is just the user agent, which is fine, but it doesn't give you the nice, neat list of the type of browser that you're using, version, operating system, all that stuff. So that was introduced with this latest update, but it goes beyond that a little bit because we're not just thinking about what is in CJA. So we use AEP to connect data from your website or digital property or wherever to any number of endpoints. So the integration with the Datastream doesn't just provide out-of-the-box device information. It also enables you to send consistent data to whatever endpoint you want. Now, this is really important because it's always good to have consistency on the front end instead of trying to achieve consistency through transformations on the back end, right? I'd rather have my data look good here than have to do a million transformations here. So basically all that said, you know, what we want, and especially like you look at my blog 3 or 4 years ago, I was talking about data layers. Why do we talk about data layers? Because we want the data to be consistent going into our tag management system. We want the data to be consistent going into AEP, and we want the data to be consistent across the various platforms we're using. So let's take a look at this feature and see what the output looks like. All right, so I always start off on the home screen. I'm in the Adobe Marketing Cloud Evangelist property, so you're gonna see some numbers here that don't match up with your numbers, or at least I hope not. I hope you're not using almost 900 data sets. That would be ridiculous, or almost 500 schemas. We're gonna scroll down to data streams because most of you, if you're using AEP, you have a data stream. Like that's just the way it works. So you have to point the data somewhere. So if you're using AEP without a data stream, please hit me up, leave a comment or something like that. Let me know that that's what you're doing, and we're going to send a team of scientists over to you to study you and why you do the things that you do. So for everybody else, here's the Datastream's interface. And if you already have one set up for your website, click into your data stream. You might not even have to do that. There's probably an easy way to get to the edit screen. Click on the edit button and on your stream. So like let's time out real quick because I'm going into like exactly how to do this. What we're trying to achieve here, like what I'm trying to achieve here. I want the data in CJA to show the device and browser information. Like I just want it to appear there, and I don't want to have to do work. This is how we're getting device information into CJA. Before I go into the device lookup section, which is right here, I've already checked this off from my website. I'll show you a data stream from scratch. I want to talk a little bit about the geolocation and network lookup. This is really important if you want to measure where people are coming from. And again, we're talking about migrating data from this Adobe Analytics structure into an AEP/CJA exclusive structure. By that I mean, like, I don't want us to be dependent on Adobe Analytics for literally everything. Then all of a sudden we're managing 2 tools instead of 1, right? So we're bringing it closer to getting everything into CJA. And that doesn't mean that you have to do it. I mean, Adobe's gonna support Adobe Analytics indefinitely. They still haven't, I think, sunset H code. So this will classify the country, postal code, and all this stuff. I recommend checking this box. We're gonna go into device lookup though, and we're gonna check all of these boxes, device, hardware, browser, and operating system. I don't know of many situations where you check only one or two of these. So just go ahead and select all of them. If there's a use case for unchecking operating system but leaving browser, let me know. Again, I'm always interested in weird stuff. So if you're just creating a data stream, or if you're looking at your website's data stream, it'll probably look something like this. Just check this box or toggle this radio button and check all these boxes. Okay, so what is this? What does this do on the back end? Once you check this and once you save it, what does it look like on the back end in Customer Journey Analytics? Okay, so let's go to the data view. So if you are currently using the Adobe Analytics schema, if you're piping data in from Adobe Analytics into CJA, you might have an interface that looks kind of like this. I went into CJA, I clicked on data views, and I am going to my website data view, and you click on components. You're gonna see this thing called Adobe Lookups. Now this is old stuff, right? This is part of the Adobe Analytics data that's piping into CJA. So these Adobe Lookups that include stuff like browser information, browser group, browser name. This is all stuff from Adobe Analytics. This is not the stuff that we just checked off. It's not the same, right? The stuff that we just checked off have a different schema path. What we're looking at, the stuff that we just checked. All right, so we're gonna see stuff like device.model, device.typeid, and let's actually take a look at what this looks like in CJA. So I'm gonna go to Workspace. I made this change several days ago, so we already have a little bit of data, and I wanted to see what it looks like. So when you type in browser, you might be tempted to say, oh, look, browser name. Whoa, wait, don't do that. Because this is actually using the Adobe Analytics browser name. I mean, you still can, if it's still pulling in data, like sure, whatever. In my case, I am not piping in data from Adobe Analytics, so when you pull in browser name, it's going to show no value here. One interesting thing is that when you look at user agent, you might be used to user agent, and that's environment.browserdetails.useragent. When you pull this in, you'll see your user agents from prior to toggling this. When you toggle these options, what it does is it replaces the user agent value. It just pulls that out and buckets it into these nice categories. So you'll see I have no value here. The value, no value. I hope I have some value. But see that after Wednesday, when I toggle this, we're now we're getting no user agent values, and that's just because I toggled that option on. So anyway, let's move on. We're gonna go to name. So for instance, like the browser details and the name. Now you got to be careful because you might have name multiple times as a dimension. It's a really generic name. See what I did there? There's a second version of name. It's called name2 in my data view. You want to be careful as to which one you pull in. So just expand the toolbar on the left, and you can see the path. So we're going to be looking for environment.browserdetails.name. And a lot of this stuff, like operating system and all of that, follows the same path, environment.something.whatever, as opposed to _experience.analytics.environment.browser ID string blah 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 blah. And so I'm going to pull this in, and boom, there it is. This is the resultant. I mean, we don't have the ugly user agent anymore, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands, probably hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of different types of user agents. Not super useful, and you could always pass in user agent separately if you still want to retain that value. Outside of that, for all the other folks, you can pull in this environment.browserdetails.name stuff and take a look at much neater format of browsers. I mean, this is what we've grown to love about Adobe Analytics. Is it converts, some obvious stuff like user agent into values that are usable. So that's about it. It's a pretty simple video, pretty quick. This is, I think, moving us in the right direction where we want to have our data to be consistent prior to landing in the report suites. I mean, one thing that drives me nuts is and this applies to like Google Analytics 4, and it applies to Adobe Analytics, it applies to CJA, anything where once the data is in the report, you start massaging it, like with GA4 creating an event or something like that. In Adobe Analytics using classifications, CJA even derived fields and stuff like that, which are nice, they're great to have, but you want to make sure that your data is as clean as it can be prior to going into the reporting tools. And that has a lot of implications, I mean, if you are massaging data in one tool and you look at this other tool and it's horrendous, then you can't really compare them apples to apples. Like, you're doing a lot more data transformations, and that's cognitive load that you don't want to have to spend, and instead, use those brain cycles to think about the business. And this change, in my mind, helps bring us closer to thinking about the business. So thank you to Eric Matisoff for bringing this to my attention, and another big thanks to all the other people who've been very helpful guiding me through these CJA features as we discover new stuff every single day. So happy analyzing, and I'll see you next time.